Good afternoon, attendees, our panelists. My name is Shameeka Leacock. I serve as the Associate Director of Community here at the James Beard Foundation. If you're not familiar with the foundation, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to celebrate, support, and elevate the people behind America's food culture and champion a standard of good food anchored in talent, equity, and sustainability. What we're doing today for this afternoon's webinar is just that. This webinar celebrating Lunar New Year is perfectly aligns with our mission and is featuring members of the James Beard Foundation Legacy Network program. We have today Katy Chang, Michelle Barrera, and David Ho. If you're interested in learning about our JBF programs, such as the Legacy Network program, different initiatives and events that we have at the James Beard Foundation, I encourage you to visit our website, jamesbeard.org, as well as platform.jbf.org, or check us out on social media at Beard Foundation. I just want to let you know for this webinar, we'll be having a great conversation with our panelists, but there is an opportunity for you to ask questions or leave some comments. So please do so in the chat feature or the Q&A feature. We want to hear from you and what questions you may have for our panelists. I also want to let you know that there is an opportunity to review or watch again this webinar. It will be housed on our virtual education library, which can be found on our website or on the James Beard Foundation YouTube page. So thank you again for attending today's webinar. I'd like to go ahead and introduce today's panelist. Michelle Barrera is up first. Someone who's had a 13-year career as a registered nurse and then transitioned into the food and beverage communications, partnership, and community building space. She founded EnjoySLO, an online resource that champions local emerging businesses and events, and is also the founder of At Her Table, a collective of women-owned businesses in the food and beverage industry with over 250 members in San Luis Obispo County in California. Next up, we have Katy Chang. She's a social impact entrepreneur, chef, farmer, and the CEO of EatsPlace, which is a community development financial institution that provides entrepreneurial coaching and technical assistance to farm and food businesses throughout its food hub. Through EatsPlace, Katy has mentored and offered business and operations consultant to numerous businesses in the Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia region. She's also a Stonebird Center Fellow under Chef Dan Barber. And last but not least, we also have on today's call David Ho, who's a graduate of the Culinary Institute of America. He actually learned his craft from the chef John, who serves as a sous chef of Redbird in Los Angeles before moving to Washington, D.C., where he eventually became the sous chef to the high-end of Vietnamese concept Moon Rabbit. David will likely share with you a little bit, but he's also working on his own concept that really celebrates and highlights Vietnamese cuisine. So welcome our panelists. So excited to talk to you. This has been something that we've had in the works for some time. I know that I'm really excited for you to share your culture and particularly what Lunar New Year means to you with the audience this afternoon. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of ask you guys to tell us a little bit about, give us your names again. I know I've shared your bio, but tell us a little bit about if there's any meaning to your name, your personal background. I know that we have a great representation of Asian communities on the call, and tell us a little bit about where you grew up.
I can go first, I guess. I'm Katy Chang. I'm Chinese American, first generation. My parents are immigrants from China and Taiwan, and I am Washington, D.C., born and raised. My name is Katy Chang, but my Chinese name is Kai T, which is a transliteration of KT. When we have time, there's a longer story about that, about the patriarchy that we can get into, but that's it for now. Thanks.
I can go next. My name is David Ho, but my Vietnamese name is Phu Ho. And Phu in Vietnamese kind of translates to wealth and prosperity. My parents are from Nha Trang in Vietnam, but then immigrated to Los Angeles, where I was born and where I was raised, and then I moved over to Washington, D.C., where I grew up here throughout my teenage years.
And my name's Michelle Barrera. Nothing with my name, but my parents liked it. So my name is Michelle, but I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and I moved to San Luis Obispo County 7 years ago. And I'm loving every moment of it here.
Amazing. So our webinar is all about celebrating Lunar New Year. And I think most of us know Lunar New Year is really the celebration of the arrival of the spring and the beginning of the new year based upon the calendar that you may follow. Could you all just tell me a little bit about your experience and the significance of Lunar New Year or Tet, which I know is represented Vietnamese culture, right, David? Tell us a little bit about what the significance of Lunar New Year and Tet means to you.
I think for me, when growing up celebrating that, it was a celebration of starting anew, where a lot of black blood gets left behind, and then we start anew. It's does signify the start of the spring, but for us in Vietnamese culture, it also signifies the start of our new year as a rebirth. So setting aside anything that was kind of any grudges you had, any feelings of despair or sadness you had for the previous year, letting it go, and then moving forward to the next year. And growing up, just experiencing the community coming together under one banner is kind of what my fondest memory was, like celebration together with food and seeing all the smiles around everyone's faces, especially when you see people that you haven't seen in a very long time and you just have the chance to reconnect with them. I think that is what really resonated with me growing up.
Thanks. How about you, Katie?
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what David said about the idea of letting go of the old year and celebrating this sense of reunion. In Mandarin, Chinese New Year is actually called Tunjie, so it's actually the spring festival. And being here in DC, I also feel like, oh, it's wintertime. How could it be the spring festival? But then when I think about it, I notice these signs. The crocus are coming out. Our ducklings have come into the farm. So there are all these things happening, and it is spring. It's a new beginning, a new awakening, and the festival is super long. It goes from the new moon to the new moon. So it's basically a month, and it's amazing. A month to celebrate food and your friends and your family. And it kicks off with this Nian Ye Fan. It's like a Chinese New Year reunion dinner. So it's like the first night, and everybody comes together and meets up, and they have a big, big dinner.
Oh, more to come about the dinner for sure. And Michelle, how about you?
Same. I think I really resonate with the word reunion. It's a time where my family and friends, especially those who are Chinese, we get together and we celebrate and see each other again. We just had a Lunar New Year here in San Luis Obispo County, and that was so present. People coming together, seeing each other after such a long time, and the gift giving, no matter how big or how small, on that special occasion, they have something for you. And I think that's so beautiful.
Hey, thank you for sharing that. You know, what's so great, I think, about Lunar New Year's is that it's not only representative of the Chinese community and Chinese culture, but other Asian countries as well. So you all represent really unique backgrounds. We have Katie is Chinese, Vietnamese, David, and Filipino by Michelle. Tell us a little bit about those unique traditions that that you found based upon your culture, but maybe just in your household that might have been unique to others in other communities.
For Thai, it's very interesting in especially Vietnam. One really fun fact is that in Vietnam is kind of when everyone celebrates their birthday. Like by technicality, even though everyone's born on different days, we celebrate everyone's birthday on Tet, which makes it the biggest celebration in our country. It's the it's bigger than Christmas, bigger than like every other thing. It's kind of the party and the celebration of the year where everyone prepares months in advance for time just 1 week's long span. And I think that is something that's kind of really cool. And over time, it evolved from when we used to give out the red envelopes, which is called lise in Vietnamese. It's kind of a symbol of, oh, here's a fortune of wealth and prosperity, but also the amount of dollar bills you have to give has to be even number. So the $2 bill in America, we always give the $2 bill in America, and specifically in American, when we do celebrate that. And we celebrate always eating a banjung, which is a mung bean. It's like a pork and rice wrapped in sticky rice and mung bean as well. That's something we eat, as long as candied fruit as well. That's something that's very iconic to what we do. But there's also games that we play with the money that we get, but also signifying that it's like it's not about the money, but also celebrating the community aspect and just enjoying time with one another as well. And I think that's something that is, I think, really cool to me, and I see a lot when I go hang out with my friends during Lunar New Year's.
And if you could just explain, David, tell us a little bit about the mung bean dish and the significance, as well as the candy. You know, you told me a little bit about that before.
So for there's like a folklore story behind it. I could get more to it later. I kind of jig, but it was invented a long time ago. It was kind of a competition of who can make the best dish for New Year's, and the chef back in the day made this dish, which is essentially pork that has mung bean in it into a ball, that it's wrapped around a layer of sticky rice. Then it's wrapped around banana leaf and then steamed or fried. And usually we always get that during Lunar New Year's. And for my family specifically, we always, the day before that, we always make it together as a family. So I think that also similar to, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, like similar to how people come together to make dumplings during a party or festival. I think that's something that is really amazing to see as well.
Yeah, it's not just eating food together, but it's the act of preparing it together.
And Katie, tell us a little bit about your experience.
Well, for Lunar New Year, it's like it's all about the color red. It's all about fireworks and drumming and lanterns and lion dances. And the reason why, it's to scare away the old year. So the old year has a name. It's called Nian, like year. And it's this monster, and you have to scare it away with joy and love. And so you bring out the lights, you bring out lanterns and the color red. And but it's like the timing is really specific. So you scare away the old year, but then you have to make sure that you stop so you can let the new year come in and all the good things come in. So we're always like really specific about that. Like you have to clean, but then you have to stop because you don't want to sweep away the good luck too. So it's like, you know, bad things go out, but good things have to come in. Yeah, so it's just interesting trying to translate that when we got here to America, because my dad, even it was so hard to get garlic in the 1980s. He had to go to, I remember going with him to Little Italy and trying to source garlic because it was like exotic at the grocery store. And then just our own twist on things. We had ham with canned pineapple rings that we braised in Coca-Cola, and that was like one of our mainstay dishes, like one of the like authentically inauthentic immigrant dishes we ate.
I love that. And tell us again the significance of the color red. We are also wearing red in honor of Lunar New Year.
It's just like a really powerful color, and the moon is often red, like you can see that, and it's just like a color of like joy and prosperity. I mean, there's like a lot of iconography about prosperity, like like literally this is like a giant sack of money. It's resin, it's not real, but there's a lot of food that like mimics it. I mean, and I think we were talking about this before. It's like the idea of wealth and prosperity is not necessarily about material things. It's really about about health and being there with your friends and family. Like I had a brain tumor, but so it doesn't look good to have like a gold-plated brain, but this looks good. This is nice. So it's just the idea of being able to spend time with family, and this idea of of prosperity. And one thing we do is, so there's a lot of hononyms, so words that sound similar that you use. So we'll do a whole fish, and you have to get the whole fish. And yu fish sounds like fortune, and you want to have the sense of abundance. So the reason why you have the whole fish is you don't necessarily eat the head and the tail. You may want to eat the fish cheeks or the eyes, but you leave it. And that's a sense of abundance. So the food waste advocate in me is like, there's so much food wasted, but like the good Chinese American host in me is like, abundance more. You know, if your guest leaves some on the plate, that means they've had enough.
Thank you for sharing that. I would love to join you one of these days, and I'd love
You're
to join
welcome.
the whole fish. Yeah. Michelle, how about you? Tell us a little bit about some of the traditions you experienced with your Filipino family.
Well, for being in a Filipino family, we love a party, we love food, we love the opportunity to give and exchange money. Also, I've got my red envelope. It's here. It's from Chase Bank. Apparently, they do this every year, and they put whatever the symbolic animal of the year is. So for us, we get together, we make egg rolls. For my other friends who are in the Asian community, we go out to festivals together, we cook together. It's really such a special time where we have that time to connect again, especially after it's been such a long time. So yeah, I resonate with everything Katie and David said. And yeah, I'm happy to celebrate every year.
Nice. So, what's really interesting, you've shared a little bit about your traditions, things that you celebrated with family and friends, and I'd love to hear a little bit about how you think Lunar New Year is currently inspiring you and other chefs in the broader culinary community. We're seeing, I think, so much more information and knowledge about Lunar New Year. I recall learning about it as a kid, but I think there's so much more information out there these days. How has it inspired you and others in the culinary space?
When I see Lunar New Year's happens and growing up seeing it happen, I see a lot more. For me, I love it because it's a lot more of the community aspect in the hospitality and food industry, where you see a lot more chefs, not even just API chefs, but just chefs of any kind of collabing together, making a Lunar New Year's menu with different restaurants coming together. And I think that really signifies kind of the importance of one of the facets of that or Lunar New Year's, which is community and coming together. But then with that, you also see that these chefs are taking the time to learn more about what kind of foods are eaten during New Year's, what kind of cultures and traditions are happening with each kind of version of Lunar New Year's. And so they're exposed to a lot more ingredients. Like, let's say 2017, I would have never seen Chinese long beans or mung beans in kind of New York or DC, but now it's getting a lot more common. And nowadays, it's more common of an ingredient than it was back in the day, from what I see.
Yeah. Katie, you were saying that in the 80s, you couldn't even find garlic, which sounds crazy to me. What kind of changes have you seen in the culinary community regards to Lunar New Year?
I just feel like it's so more inclusive now. It's super exciting. I saw someone making brioche tête with the little head, and it actually looks like a gold coin like that with the little, and they made that in celebration of Lunar New Year. And I thought, wow, that's so wonderful, and it's so thoughtful. And I just love that so many people are celebrating Lunar New Year. I would love to see it become a federal holiday. I just think it's like becoming less formal and more accessible to people, which I really love. So instead of like a big banquet, you can have a banquet type meal for one or for two. So you don't have to have a big family reunion. It could be your chosen family. You know, it's like you can make it modern and you can make it work for you. It's less formal. It's a lot more fun. Traditionally, Chinese food wasn't necessarily that dessert focused, but now there's so many amazing Lunar New Year desserts out there. So I love what's happening to it, and I love that it's becoming more accessible to people.
Yeah, I so agree. In our area, we had our first city supported Lunar New Year, and we were anticipating 500 people, but it ended up being 5,000, which is incredible. we had a number of food vendors and they all sold out, which is so great. And I was lucky enough to be a part of one of the discussion panels. And they asked something similar, that what am I excited for within the culinary industry and Lunar New Year? And honestly, it's the diversity, the equality, the inclusion, people showing up to it and opening their hearts to trying new foods and experiencing our culture. There was this moment that I had seen where there was someone who was a little bit impatient to get their food because they noticed the vendor was seeing their friend that they hadn't seen in many years. And it's just these webinars and these explanations of why it's so important, why reunion is so important within our culture, that will educate people that maybe, you know, in that moment they didn't know, but to be patient because this is something they don't have every day. We are in San Luis Obispo County, we are a predominantly Caucasian community. And when this group gets an opportunity to meet, they're really excited. So, you know, to be patient and understanding and kind. And the community has really done that by showing up for the Lunar New Year that we just had. So I'm really proud of where we live. It is growing. I think we're going to have a really big Lunar New Year next year because of the large attendance we had. But yeah, really excited.
Hey, I'm so happy to see the shift, that people are anxious to learn and want to celebrate. Something that I think is really meaningful that you guys have all kind of explained. It's food is a very big portion of Lunar New Year, clearly, but it's really about good energy, good vibes, positivity, right? As you kind of explained a little bit earlier. I'd like you guys to all take a stab at answering this question, but Katy, I had this question with you in mind because I know that you started uh, working with your dad at a very early age in the kitchen, creating Chinese dishes and helping out. So how has sort of this inspired you becoming a chef yourself and owning the EatsPlace?
Yeah, it's so interesting because EatsPlace really helps chefs and farmers start up and grow. And I think that's a direct result of my dad being a chef and helping me grow as a chef. And our corporate name is actually Baba's Cooking School, and Baba's dad in Mandarin because he taught me so much about cooking and about life. So yeah, it's been really interesting and learning about, I don't speak Cantonese, but I know that shrimp is ha, which is Cantonese, and it's the sound of laughter, and that's why we eat it for Lunar New Year. And we always make sea salt and black pepper shrimp. So there's these classic dishes that I've just grown up always making and knowing about. Like we do like a roast duck and a crispy pork belly, and it means like joy and happiness and loyalty. And we put them in like bao, like the buns with like plum sauce and scallions. And when I was so little and coming up in the kitchen, my dad would just like throw some dough at me, and instead of like making a bun, I would just make mantou, which is like an empty bun, and I would just make like teddy bears and things like that. So just like feeling like food was something that you could play with, and then also like the pride and like giving my mom like a little teddy bear bun and having her eat it, like just having that food as a connecting point. And I just love the fact that Lunar New Year is so food focused because it's a shortcut to connecting to people. It's a shortcut to having people understand your story. And the moon is for everyone. Like the moon is there for everyone. And I'm just happy to see it become something that's more around, something like, you know, even St. Patrick's Day, or, you know, something that we can celebrate. If it becomes a drinking holiday, wow, then so many people would celebrate it.
And so I know that you mentioned your dad's business was a cooking school, and then you formulated EatsPlace all around supporting other chefs and culinary professionals. What inspired that?
Well, he actually owned, he worked his way up from a busboy to being a chef, and he owned a few restaurants. And when I told him I was going to open EatsPlace, he's like, listen, I didn't do all of this, suffer and, you know, grow up so poor, so you could be a chef, right? You went to law school, you're a lawyer. And I said, oh, no, I'm not gonna just open a restaurant. I'm gonna like open a place where I can teach other people to open restaurants. He's like, I love that idea. I support that idea. If only I had that when I was coming up. So, so it was really something that he supported and he really liked. Growing up, he's one of the many, many millions of famine survivors in China. And so he went from having nothing. I mean, he literally had the bubonic plague because he was trying to catch a rat to eat. So he went from nothing to having so much food and being able to feed people, and just using food as a way to communicate with people was really, really good for him because he came here, he really didn't speak English, but when people ate his food, they understood him perfectly.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's an amazing story. Yeah. And Michelle, sort of similar to Katy, you transitioned into the culinary space, right? This is not your first career, maybe second or maybe even third. Tell us a little bit about why you decided to go into food and beverage and doing the work that you're doing with EnjoySLO and At Her Table.
I think for me, I ended up doing it because I loved stories. Even as a kid, I loved to tell stories, and food is just this magical way of telling stories. And I think food transcends everything. You know, it's a way that people can connect, they can forgive, they can be equal. I get emotional talking about it because it's just such a magical space. So when I left my nursing career for this field of work, I just really poured my heart and soul into it. There's nothing better than to experience what people cook. I've had the joy of working with chefs, with those in the event industry, and I think people see those things as superficial, like, oh, it's food, oh, it's an event. No, this is a story and it's coming to life. And events, they set the example for what you want to see in the world and what you're creating in your community. So I have always really enjoyed this field of work, and I'm really thrilled and thankful for it. I mean, even with this Lunar New Year that we just had, it was thrown by their event planners in the area, Amber, the Carson Butler sisters. They just did such a fantastic job. And to be in an event where so many people felt seen and the community was brought together in such a powerful way, there's just nothing to describe it, which is why I love these events.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. And David, tell us a little bit about your culinary journey. Did your family inspire you in any way? What brought you to the culinary space?
I think growing up especially like I said, during Lunar New Year's, and then also just growing up in general, when specifically in Asian culture, I believe is that when the first thing that people ask when we greet each other is, have you eaten yet? Or did you get something to eat already? I think that's kind of our way of showing that we care rather than like, how are you? I think that really resonates with how valuable we treat dinner and like eating together as a community. And just growing with countless there's not even just parties, but just eating normally. We eat together as a family. It's always family style. And it's always, you make the food together, you eat the food together, and you also clean up together. That sense of hospitality, just in that itself, kind of inspired me to go the path I take. That I want to show that to the world, that it's just more than just food, but it's the people that you do it with. And that really is what I want to showcase in the restaurant that I hope to open one day, is where if you eat at my space, you're considered our family there. And I think that's how we should view the guests as well, is that when I come over to my friend's house, when I come over to an aunt's house, we're treated as family over there, that it's our home as well as theirs, similar to how I believe that we should treat our guests when they walk into our space.
Yeah, I love that. I know that you're working on rebranding your concept for Vietnamese cuisine and you're really passionate about it.
Mhm.
Are there any dishes in particular that are maybe have been celebrated during Lunar New Year that you have revised or made your own and would be serving at a pop-up or a restaurant of your own in the future?
As of right now, it would be very much like bantung, and something of kind of showcasing that in a more way into a space in a pop-up in the future, hopefully someday.
Okay, I'm looking forward to that. I'm happy to be the first taste tester if you need any help with that. I'd love to talk a little bit about, we talked a little bit about the traditions of Lunar New Year in your individual cultures. I'd love to hear from you how you see some of the traditions of Lunar New Year changing over the years. Tell us a little bit about what you've witnessed or maybe attending other events or in your own home. How has it changed? Naturally, things get modified, especially given that we live in America. There is access to some things and not access to other things. What kind of shift have you seen over the years? Or do you think shifts that will continue to happen in the future?
We used to do this thing called windblown chicken, and it was great for the seasonal change of winter to spring. And you literally just hang chicken out in the wind and you let it blow through. I don't know if you all have like dishes like this, but that's what we had. And I just remember my grandmother and these dogs, these neighborhood dogs. Maybe we grew up in a bad neighborhood, I'm not sure, but just going after this chicken. And she was like holding it up on a pole because it was on the laundry line. And I just think about her windblown chicken and her trying to save it. And now I have this amazing dehydrator. I'm just like, grandma would be so proud of my dehydrator and her windblown chicken. So I think like technology has definitely modernized our food, and then also just the ability to just things are much smaller. You know, I used to have to go and put all my spices in a suitcase and get on a plane, and it's just so much easier now. It's just the world is smaller, which is great.
And I think going into that, I think we touched briefly before about just accessibility to ingredients that are from our culture, like what you said, like Katie, about garlic, and then other things like even tamarind, Chinese long beans, things of that nature. They're a lot more accessible now than they were back in the day for sure. And I think that exposure of new ingredients and going into more of mainstream market is something that's, I think, very beneficial in kind of showcasing our culture to everyone that's around the world.
I totally agree with you, David. I think I'm seeing Lunar New Year grow and more people wanting to participate. In our county, they're super big on our DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion programs. And I'm actually seeing them make a difference. When we did the Lunar New Year here, the Carson Butler events, one thing that I thought was so beautiful is they are two Caucasian women, but they came out of such a pure heart and respect for the culture, and they invited everyone who was an AAPI leader and event planner in the community into one room. And they even were just so humble, like, this is not our culture, but we love it and we want to be really respectful. And we want your feedback, what we could do to make this the best event that it can be so the community is united. And they did such a fantastic job. And I see Lunar New Year growing because of these actions. Because when I was growing up, Lunar New Year was like, oh, it's for that community and we don't participate. But as the years have gone by and these programs continue to grow, it becomes a full-on community event where everyone can experience a new culture and learn something new.
I actually love that idea of like bringing the whole community into it. And that's one thing I've noticed working with farmers in rural Appalachia. The things that people are growing, it's no longer just farm to plate. It can be from farm to rice bowl. You know, they're growing these culturally appropriate, interesting things that, you know, I don't have to source from all over the world. I can just get it in my backyard now.
That's such a cool way to honor a culture, you know, and very just smart in planning. Yeah. In terms of, we were talking about this, I think David and I, you know, and I mentioned earlier at the start of the webinar that as a kid, I do remember learning about the New Year, but I remember learning it as Chinese New Year. And certainly, I think, David, we talked about that, calling it Lunar New Year, and I'm not sure how other countries approach it, but it is more inclusive than just saying Chinese New Year. It really allows other cultures who also represent this time of the year in the fold. So that seems to be one of the other changes that I've noticed, and just in terms of how it's talked about in the articles that are featured about the culture. What's something that you guys think that perhaps we don't know about that would be really interesting to learn about Lunar New Year? Anything that you can think of that hasn't really made it to events, TV shows, or articles?
Well, it's interesting because we never call it Chinese New Year, right? We call it the Spring Festival. So it's interesting that other people call, oh, we're all Chinese. Right? Oh, no, we're not all Chinese. So I love Lunar New Year. But as far as like for the Spring Festival, it's just so long. I actually, my daughter was in an immersion program, a Mandarin immersion school, preschool, and I took her out of the school and I let the office know, and I thought that was it. And then when I wrote back to the teacher to just wish her a happy Duanwujie, it's like another festival in May, she wrote back, it's like, oh, how is your Spring Festival Lunar New Year going? Is it still happening? She just thought we were away on vacation. And I was like, no, we're not at the school anymore. But I mean, it's just, I think people think like, oh, it's that one day, or maybe it's like a couple of weeks, but it actually goes on for quite a long time, which I love because a procrastinator in me is like, oh, it's always a good time to celebrate new beginnings.
Yeah. Michelle, you showed us the envelope again, and we were talking about the fact that corporate companies are getting more involved in Lunar New Year is an interesting shift, right? And Katie, you mentioned advocating for it to be a federal holiday, which I love the idea as well. But if you can show the envelope again, the fact that Chase Bank, understands this, hopefully understands the significance and is sort of showing their support in some way, I think is a good direction. I sometimes when the corporate umbrella gets a hold of things, it can sometimes water it down, but that kind of made sense to me. Anything else that you guys have noticed similar to that?
Characters like Hello Kitty has her own little envelope. I think I agree. There's like this corporatization. There's a Barbie one, and I feel like representation is so important. It kind of outweighs my conflict with the corporations. So I love that.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to, Michelle, David, and Katie, you've shared different examples about how others get involved with Lunar New Year. Could you tell me a little bit about ways that you think people can get involved, can celebrate and experience Lunar New Year in your community or perhaps on a global level?
I think by going to these festivals, there's always something happening, reaching out to the cultural clubs in your community, learning something new. Our cultural clubs here, they were teaching how to do calligraphy, they have dance classes, they talk about history. And I think I love history so much. A lot of people don't know that about me, but history teaches us so much about where we need to go and what we need to be doing to make our communities better.
No, I completely agree. And I think the best way you can learn is just spending time with the people that celebrate. It's like if you want to learn about, let's say, Tet, or you want to learn about the Chinese version of Lunar New Year's or Singaporean, you go hang out with the community there and just spend time with them. And I think naturally over time you'll grasp how they're celebrated just by spending time with them. And I guess in a broader sense, I think just even simply acknowledging that Lunar New Year's is a holiday, like saying on that day, saying Happy Lunar New Year's, something as small as that, just acknowledging it I think is a good step forward as well.
I agree with all of that, and supporting AAPI-owned businesses, going out to eat is always a wonderful thing to do, and support businesses too.
Thank you for sharing all of those recommendations. Those all feel like great small steps that people can take to learn about Lunar New Year if they're interested in being a part of it. I just want to make sure that those of you who are attending today's webinar know that if you have any questions for our panelists, please type them in the chat, or you can also type them in the Q&A portion. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have about their work or about Lunar New Year. So go ahead,
Oh,
Katie.
I was going to say, you know what I received? I just got a bunch of it in the mail. These amazing Lunar New Year cards, and maybe they've replaced like the holiday cards. And then, okay, if you missed the holiday deadline, you can do the New Year's cards. Now you can do Lunar New Year cards, so you don't have to feel like you missed out. You can still update people and tell them about your vacations and your family photos with Lunar New Year cards. I was excited to receive those updates.
Yeah, it sounds like things are really continuing to shift in a great way. Yeah. I know that Michelle mentioned a little bit about helping out with a particular event in her community for Lunar New Year. Katie and David, have you guys planned any events or done any cooking for Lunar New Year events in your area?
I did a cooking demonstration, and then we're part of Nourish DC, a collaborative. It's not for Lunar New Year, but it's at the end of the month. We're doing an open house for people who are curious about how to start up and grow businesses, food businesses. So we can offer technical assistance for that.
Very cool. Nice.
For this year, I did a coffee pop-up with New Year's, just kind of celebrating Vietnamese egg coffee and then making a pastry to go along with it. And right now we're still planning it, but hopefully by next New Year's, I am doing a tasting menu with a restaurant, which is to be determined of the date. So, but that'll be for next year.
Nice. And Michelle, anything else in the works for you? I know you were on that panel for that recent event in your area.
When it comes to Lunar New Year, definitely I will be supporting my city if they decide to do it again. I'm pretty sure they will because of the response. Whenever there is an opportunity to create things that are diverse and set that tone and example for my community, I always love to step in. Right now I'm working on At Her Table in honor of Women's History Month, and it's over 40 things in 10 days. So that is where all my time and energy is going. And we're going to be doing the first ever International Women's Day fireworks in our area in honor of it. So we're really excited, lots to do. And we are just so hyped for all the events.
Yeah, I'm so excited for all the work that you're doing. Katie and David, please also tell us a little bit about what's next for you, any interesting projects that you'd like to share with the attendees on the call.
I'm finishing up my documentary about my dad's story as a chef and as an immigrant, which I feel like is a pretty universal story. So I'm excited to share that with you in the future.
Excellent, thank you.
For
And
me,
David?
I'm not sure, me and Michelle are doing a dinner in July with her, so that's very exciting. Then I am looking to open a restaurant by next year around winter of 2025, so that's something to look forward to. And there's also other pop-ups in New York and Los Angeles. I am doing a tasting menus with restaurants throughout this year, so that's something that to be on the lookout for as well.
And David, how do we find out about all this? Like, should we be following you on Instagram or what is it?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. It's just at Chef David Ho. But I think that you'll find the most recent updates there. And there's something very exciting happening next month, but I can't say it yet, but you guys will find out in March. So yeah.
I love these secrets.
You mentioned, David, your Instagram. Michelle, how can people find out about your two organizations, and same for Katie?
For EnjoySLO, it's EnjoySLO on Instagram, and for At Her Table, it's At Her Table Slow. And definitely tune in, follow us, because we're gonna also be hosting the first ever James Beard dinner here, Friends of James Beard dinner here on March 1st to kick off Women's History Month. And they have not been to our area in almost 2 decades. So we're excited to have them back.
Excellent.
Just follow us at EatsPlace or go to eatsplace.com. If you want to work with us, there's an application form, and happy to answer any questions you might have.
I will vouch for Katy because she has helped at her table a lot.
Oh, that's great.
So
That's amazing. Well, I just wanted to take a moment to thank you all for participating on this webinar. I feel like I'm learning so much about Lunar New Year, but all of the amazing work that you're doing. I also want to thank you for participating in this year's Legacy Network program. You all bring so much to the program. And I've learned a lot from you. I hope you've taken a lot from the program. For those of you on the call who may be interested in learning about Legacy Network, it's a virtual mentorship program for BIPOC members of the culinary community, where essentially we pair advisors or mentors like Katy with advisees or mentees such as Michelle and David. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to grow your culinary network or hospitality network as a mechanism to just support each other in our goals. So this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your personal experiences with Lunar New Year, and look forward to working with you guys in the future.
thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for attending, everyone. Have a good afternoon.